One of the strangest things I've seen teaching English to adults is watching brilliant professionals suddenly feel small the moment they switch languages. And I don't mean beginners, I mean people who are genuinely impressive. People who lead teams, people who negotiate contracts, people who manage companies, people with years of experience, knowledge, and authority. And then someone asks them a simple question in English like, "So, what did you do this weekend?" And they freeze. Not because they are not intelligent, not because they don't know English, but because suddenly they don't fully recognize themselves in that language yet. And honestly, I've been thinking about this a lot lately because it keeps happening in my classes. I've recently started working with a new student whose English is honestly excellent. Like, genuinely excellent. C1 level. Brilliant professional. She negotiates, she buys companies, she leads conversations all day long. And when we started working together, I remember thinking, what am I supposed to teach this woman? She's brilliant. But then we started doing more casual conversation practice. Not negotiations, not presentations, not formal meetings, just normal human conversation. And suddenly she froze. If I asked, "How was your weekend? What have you been doing lately? What kind of things do you enjoy outside work?" she became uncomfortable. And at first, it surprised me so much because how can someone negotiate companies in English but struggle with small talk? And then I realized something really interesting. She wasn't struggling because she lacked English. She was struggling because she wasn't used to being the one answering the questions. Listen to this. She wasn't used to be the one answering the questions. That was all. She's usually the person leading, directing, managing, controlling the conversation. And suddenly the attention was on her. And the funniest part is that a few classes later, we switched roles during our role play, and she started asking me the questions instead. And I froze. I froze. Me, I speak English all day. I teach English all day. I'm constantly in meetings and classes and conversations. And still, when she started leading the interaction, I noticed my brain going blank for a second because I'm also used to being the one asking the questions. And I remember sitting there thinking, oh my God, this is exactly what is happening to her. It wasn't about grammar, it was about role, comfort, identity, pressure. And once I understood that, the classes changed completely because now we weren't trying to fix this situation in English. We were helping her feel like herself in English. And honestly, I think that changes everything because this happens constantly with adult professionals. I work with brilliant engineers, accountants, consultants, developers, academics, people who are incredibly intelligent in Spanish. Then they switch to English and suddenly they feel like students again. I have another student who knows an incredible amount about history and geography, like genuinely brilliant. We've been working on academic writing together because I love writing. My background in applied linguistics, educational research, academic writing. I've spent years writing papers, analyzing text, rewriting things over and over again. So we started working on her academic writing in English. And her ideas are amazing, complex, nuanced, interesting. But when she writes in English, suddenly she feels basic. And I can see the frustration sometimes because in Spanish she sounds sophisticated and intelligent naturally. Meanwhile, in English, she feels limited by the structure, by the vocabulary, by the rhythm of academic writing itself. An important thing is this: she's still brilliant. The intelligence didn't disappear, but writing academically in another language is slow. It's uncomfortable. It takes time to build a version of yourself that can do that version of yourself. And I think sometimes professionals are incredibly hard on themselves because they compare their Spanish professional identity built over decades with a version of themselves in English that is still developing. Of course, it feels frustrating. You're comparing your strongest self with a version that is still under construction. Let me say it again. You're comparing your strongest self with a version that is still under construction. And honestly, this idea became even clearer to me last year when I gave a talk for English teachers here in Santa Fe, in Argentina. It was one of my first big talks, and I remember being extremely nervous. At some point near the beginning, I said something like, one of the first things we need to understand about adult learners is that they are not just students, they are professionals. And immediately, one of the teachers interrupted me. She's older, very experienced, already retired. Yes, already retired. And she said, no, they're students. They are learning. You're wrong. And I swear my entire body went cold. Terrible moment for me because suddenly I felt judged. And I was standing there in front of this audience. Like I was back in university defending my ideas in front of professors. She actually was one of them. And for a second, I became small too. Like my students, I became small, which is funny considering that's exactly what I was talking about. And I remember there was this little debate happening between some of the teachers in the room while I was internally trying to calm myself down and thinking, no, wait, this is my talk. This is my field. I know what I'm talking about. I had to consciously take the room back. Terrifying, because remember, they're 30 years older than me. They are these experienced teachers that I look up to. And I had to say something. And I said, I completely understand your perspective and I respect it. But in my classes, these people are professionals first, and they need to see themselves that way because that changes everything. The moment professionals start feeling like helpless students again, the communication changes. They apologize more, they speak with less authority, they underestimate themselves, they hide behind perfect grammar instead of real communication. And honestly, one of the biggest things I try to do in my classes is remind people who they already are. You're not starting from zero. You already lead. You already think critically. You already solve problems. You already have expertise. My job is not creating that from scratch. My job is helping you communicate that version of yourself in English. And I think that's a very different approach to language learning because the goal is not becoming someone else. The goal is sounding more like yourself again, even in another language. And honestly, I think a lot more professionals are closer than they realize. What do you think about this?